Hello, Not So Giant listeners. Just before we begin, a quick apology that we had to resurrect this episode from a bit of a tech failure. So please forgive us the odd grunt and grind of the technology there as we've restored it for your listening pleasure.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for Not So Giant Women's look at episode 14, Lars and the Cool Kids. Looks like we're getting a Lars episode, huh?
Yeah, this should be interesting because we're set to not like Lars, but we're supposed to not like him.
Right?
We're supposed to enjoy disliking this character. But because, as we've explored earlier, he reminds us of other jerks, or certainly reminds Rebecca Sugar of other jerks met over time, and be able to take out our we met a stuck-up jerk feelings out on him.
Mm-hmm. So we got a Lars episode and we got the Cool Kids.
So I guess, does Lars fall in with the cool kids? Is Lars already with the cool kids?
I guess we're about to find out.
Yeah, Lars probably thinks he's the cool kids, but...
Uh-oh.
But here we go.
We're ready.
Are the crystal gems, we'll always save the day.
Okay.
Lars and the Cool Kids.
Wasn't quite as wowed by this one as I have been by some others.
Yeah, the Lars-centric episodes are not always some of the most popular ones, but I think they're necessary, and I also think it's nice to see kind of the human side of what's going on with Steven and his human friends.
Yeah, and get a bit more feel for the people of Beach City.
Mm-hmm. Shall we do a little recap for that?
Yeah, okay. So here we go there. Stephen and the Gems are looking at a lake in a pit. Stephen is bouncing around on the rocks below, much to the Gems' horror, as this is a very dangerous place, they say. Garnet throws a rock to hit another rock and bounce Stephen right out of the pool into her arms. This is moss that Rose Quartz set up, planted years ago. Trouble is, where it is in the here and now, it is not at the top of the hill where it's meant to be, and it is quite dangerous as we see it almost consume a bird, and does consume the log the bird tries to land on. They have to work out a way to get it back to where it wants to go at the top of the hill. Pearl produces police tape from her gem, which is a thing she can do, apparently. Figuring that if any humans see the police tape, they will turn right around and not interfere with it, which... I have to admit, even given last week's discussion of how limited the Gem's understanding of people can be, I'm surprised no one called her out on this. Yeah. Unless they wrapped the place up with police tape with a nice big bow. They were going to go off make a plan, but Stephen is decided to go for lunch instead, going to the fish stew pizza place. Once there, he sees Lars hanging around outside trying to look cool by leaning against the wall. And this is because there are cool kids inside that Lars must show them how cool he is by not acknowledging them, even though he is desperate to be amongst them. The cool kids are Buck Dewey, son of Mayor Dewey, Sour Cream, who bears a passing resemblance both to Onion and to Pearl's pilot design. And who's the other? Oh, and Tiki's sister Jenny. These are apparently the resident cool kids of Beach City. As they leave the pizza place, Stephen, much to Lars' horror, simply goes up and introduces himself and I guess says he wants to be friends with them. And this works, and they invite Lars and Stephen along. Lars is still in maximum cringe, hoping Stephen doesn't do anything, quote, lame to destroy his attempts at ingratiating himself with cool kids. After not going to a bunch of the various fun spots in town, which are variously passé, lame, or other descriptions, essentially Lars keeps trying to over-agree with the cool kids and puts his foot in it each time. They go to Dead Man's Mouth, which is a lake where someone died or is shaped like a mouth. They can't remember the specifics. However, when they get to Dead Man's Mouth, they find it is the lake from earlier in the episode that is filled with moss. Stephen tries to stop them all going in, figures the police tape will help, but no, as Buck notes, they're above the law. The three cool kids go for a swim in the lake. Stephen, much to Lars' embarrassment, manages to stop Lars going in. Lars thinks this is terrible, but does get taken aback when he sees that the cool kids have been consumed by the moss in the lake. They soon emerge from the lake as basically blobs covered in moss. Stephen, in fact, gets some on his leg as he slipped in while trying to stop Lars going in. They try to pull all the moss off them, but it just grows back over the three cool kids who are trapped inside, inert or unaware or just not able to do anything because they're covered in moss. Stephen realizes they have to get them to the top of the mountain, as was the Gem's original plan. In order to get them and Moss top of the mountain, they have to take the car from Jenny's dad's pizza business, which has been described as lame and smelling like pizza. Lars has trouble because he can't drive stick. Stephen apparently can drive stick, but only the stick, and helps him get the vehicle with its increasingly covered in moss mass to the top of the hill. They have to drag the three bodies to the top of that hill, becoming increasingly covered in the slimy moss themselves. Just when it looks like they've been consumed, all is lost. The moss erupts into rose-coloured petals which take to the sky, and the five, well, I suppose technically 4.5 humans are freed. We do notice that these petals and flowers do in fact have little gems embedded in the centre. Stephen realises the moss want to get to the top of the hill to bloom. Sour Cream declares that he can rave to this beautiful view of Orla Beach City, and Stephen and Lars, well, they don't high five. What happened earlier was Stephen tried to high five Lars. Lars wouldn't take it and he just touched his chest instead. Lars returns the gesture by touching Stephen's chest, though after a few seconds he noticed that's enough, and we go to credits.
That was sweet.
So Lars has a bit of good in him after all.
Yeah.
So possibly not much because he's still kind of a jerk.
It's interesting when we get episodes where the gems are barely in them, except for Steven.
Yeah, they basically disappear as soon as they decide they have to formulate a plan for getting the moss to the top of the hill.
Yeah. For some reason, I was making a list of stuff that happened in episodes that involved Garnet, and I made a note on this one a long time ago that I think she says like 2 lines. And I'm like, you got her voice actor to come to the studio or whatever and record 2 lines. Don't hold back.
Yeah, mind you, if I were Garnet's voice actor, I'd hate to think I was being paid by the word or something.
I don't know how they pay them, honestly. But at least we got some mileage out of Pearl's recordings. She was a big goofball in this one with the martial arts routine,
Yes.
doing this weird dance before she pulled this police tape out of her head.
Yeah, I don't think we see just mundane objects pulled out.
Yeah, as such, we've seen pictures come out of there, and we've seen the spear.
Yeah, I don't know if this means she can create police tape or if she just got it earlier and then she's got like access to some subspace pocket via her forehead.
Yeah. Of course, that also makes you wonder, like, do the other gems do that? Or is it just her?
Well, Garnet extracted the key to Upside Down Temple a few episodes back.
Yep.
So again, we're not quite sure if she produced that or extracted it, but there it was.
Yeah, she definitely, she summoned that, and we didn't exactly see it, coming out, which, I've had this same conversation with some other people about, on this same topic. Do they all put stuff in there? We've never seen Steven stick stuff in his belly. I mean, unless it's by his mouth.
Yeah. Well,
that Amethyst would put, her whole room in there.
Oh, yeah, she'd be having to just sort of shake it out in all kinds of crap, and stuffed toys and Game Boys and fish burritos would just be tipping out to find what she wanted.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. There would definitely be a lot of food saved for later. Oh.
Mind you, Stephen doesn't need to store things in there because he has a cheeseburger backpack.
Yes, we must remember this. It has many pockets, even the cheese.
This one, there we go. Sorry, I had a bit of tech flux there, but I think we're back.
Yeah.
I noted that we're expanding the scene with the cool kids all related to characters we already kind of know. Well, the inference is that there's some kind of link between Sour Cream and Onion, but even as you just say it like that, it seems even more obvious.
Yes. There was a lot of speculation at this point, when you find out Sour Cream's name and, there's an onion and there is, as you said, a resemblance. People are saying Sour Cream and Onion, how can that not be related? So the question is how? Yeah, but they do not specify, do they?
No, he does look somewhat more humanoid than his brother.
Yes.
I don't know if that's just because he's small or short or his mother was a troll doll or what.
Yes. So, and yes, we got Kiki's sister, Jenny.
And Mayor Dewey's son, which also gave us another appearance by Mayor Dewey.
Yep. Buck Dewey.
And the mayor actually looks kind of like Joe Hodgson now that I'm looking at him properly.
I wonder if that was intentional. Yeah. So that was a funny scene where I like his policies on babies. And then, man, he never kisses me like that. Like a daddy kisses in my life made me who I am.
Oh, poor Lars. Everything Stephen does or says is just taken on board by the cool kids. And every time he tries to join in, it just falls flat.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like Steven is being his genuine self and everything. Whereas a lot of times when Lars says stuff, it's like he's trying to get approval. So I don't know. I felt bad for Lars too. Just, it seemed like they were always saying something against whatever he said. Even when they just agreed with it, it's like about his snake shirt. Nasty, I hate snakes. And then, I don't know, some snakes are pretty cool.
Poor Lars. I'm sure there's a just be yourself message in there somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Whatever yourself is.
Or the everyone likes Stephen, which is true usually except for Lars.
Mm-hmm.
Which Stephen cuts loose at last jerkitude in this episode.
Yes.
He finally pushed it too far by slagging off Stephen's mum.
That is right. Yes, this episode is notable for that because you never really see him lose his temper on someone and yell at them like that.
Especially because we've been led to believe, and it probably was true, that Stephen thought him and Lars were like that, were great buds.
Right. And, in the situation, it's like this is a life or death situation where his very tenuous friendship with these people is possibly ending in their deaths. And he's saying, now I'm never going to be friends with these guys. Like that's where your head is, Lars. Come on.
And taking pots at Stephen's mum, like, granted, I guess he could have been pretty frustrated that people were dying in the sludge, but I don't know, there was also a kind of contempt of familiarity, the way he said, "your stupid mom," several times over.
Yeah. And then Steven's like, what do you know about my mom? I didn't even get to know my mom.
Did make me wonder, does Lars actually have some limited experience of Stephen's mom, if only because he's older and was around before Rose gave up her physical form to birth Stephen? Or is it just everything I don't know or don't like is lame?
Right. Speaking of which, I am surprised that they used that word so much because, it's, you keep saying, quote, lame, that people, there are a lot of people who say you shouldn't use that word because of like what it means for the disability community and blah, blah, blah. And I agree. And so I'm surprised to see it so many times in this episode. They're usually a little bit better about stuff like that, but maybe this was something they just didn't see. I don't know.
I was thinking about that too. I did notice it was mostly Lars that was saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And while this is usually something it's hard to sell through a producer or network or whatever, especially on a kids show, it could be that this is supposed to show what a jerk Lars is, that he still uses lame to mean uncool, because he wouldn't consider about whether or not people who are, he says, and they're probably lame in the other sense anyway, because they're not him.
Yeah. Jenny said it about her dad's lame shop, but I wondered, what they were trying to say with that. I think it was just they didn't know that they shouldn't do it. There's a few.
It is also something that's only become increasingly aware the past few years, and we are back in, 2012, 2013 at this point?
Yeah, I believe this episode aired in, what was it? Might have been 2013. It might have been 2014. I actually don't know. So, but yeah, I've heard, discussions to that effect for quite a while now. And I guess somebody has to tell you for the first time, if you've heard it used that way, somebody has to tell you that you shouldn't use it that way. So
a bit like the G word for Romani or traveller people, a lot of people just don't know that's an offensive word, and they don't know they shouldn't be using it, and hence they do. So you're right, maybe they could have just been doing it in that sense.
Yep.
That said, I would still believe Lars wouldn't care that it was upsetting other people when he said it.
I agree. Well, I have a couple things to say kind of on the subject of having like a jerk do something that's bad without, necessarily correcting it in the text and stuff, but I can't.
That's an important factor too, actually. Yeah, whether or not they're called out on it.
Right.
And also that we're in a kids show.
About it further without spoilers. So I have some stuff to say, like somewhere about halfway through the first season, I'll be able to talk about it.
What I was going to say, another thing is that usually even if a bad person does it, that's not usually good enough reason when you're talking about making a kids show.
Right. Somebody has to say something like out loud.
if this were an R-rated drama, we'd probably be more likely to go, that's a horrid thing to say, but that's a horrid person. So
Right. Yeah. I like digressions like that. So we found out Stephen has no idea where any of his shirts come from. I like that. I have no idea where any of my clothes come from.
I'm now half wondering if one of the gems just makes them out of their gem and that's why they all look the same.
Was it Buck replied to that saying, living free, I like it. Something like that. Funny. I like that. And we got a little bit more info about something else Rose Quartz did.
Yeah.
So she likes gross stuff.
I think she sees the beauty in gross stuff.
Yes, that is exactly the message.
From what we've seen or heard of Rose so far, other than that she's Stephen's mum and various biographical details, it seems she is very sort of look for the good in things and people, look for the love in the universe, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, in fact, look at her relationship with Greg. I mean, slightly cliche as it may be, she would have seen his good soul inside and not the guy who lives there out of his van and has one posted his concert and can't sell his CD.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Even Amethyst called that moss gross. And and Pearl didn't exactly disagree with her, but she said that she loved things no matter how gross.
Now, that said, knowing Amethyst, not sure if something being gross is a bad thing.
Exactly.
Or if she would have been like that kid who, picks up a caterpillar straight out the dirt and brings it to show and tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. What else can we say about this episode? One kind of overarching thing about it that I thought was interesting is that the cool kids, to some degree, were pretty cool. Like, in a couple ways, I think they kind of fell into the stereotypes of cool kids, but overall, mostly not. So that was interesting.
Yeah, and I think jumping back to what we said about timelessness sometimes, they had some through the ages and exaggerating their experience and things.
Might have a couple more things to say about the episode itself. I'll just see. As we talked about stereotypes and each of the cool kids and the thing where Stephen lost it on Lars for calling his mom weird.
Yeah, that's the last straw for Stephen. Not that Lars hasn't had something coming for a while.
Yeah. So one other observation I found really adorable about Stephen in this episode was that he volunteered to operate the stick, and he also had no idea what he was doing. He's just like, I'll handle this. He doesn't know any more than Lars does.
He just knows you move the stick while you're driving.
Stick power. Oh, that was funny to me. That was just really cute.
Yeah, I can't drive stick either, but I do know that the R stands for reverse at least. So
yes, that part is the same. Although, like, he's using the stick, and from what I understand, you have to push the clutch with your foot, right, to make that work.
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah. So him using it on his own isn't going to do much unless he's actually telling Lars when to push the pedal. Which, I don't know, that probably seems a bit beyond his level of non-knowledge.
Yeah, hope they didn't mess up Jenny's car. Fish stew pizza needs to be doing deliveries.
Well, if the comic is true, then Pearl can fix cars. I guess up to this point, we've only just seen her drive that video game. Yeah.
So that's the only hint so far. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we saw that that's something she does understand when she was talking about needing turn signals and things like that. So
yeah,
somewhere within her sheltered knowledge, driving 101 seems to have slipped through.
Huh.
Maybe there's some kind of missing period in history where they had like a gem mobile or something.
I want to see this car.
That's before Amethyst totaled it and blamed it on seeing a squirrel or something.
Oh, yes. All of the gems' relationships with driving. We've got to have conversations about this. Let's see. The last episode we watched had the body horror in it, which I mentioned that I I get really creeped out by that. But this episode also has something in it that I get really creeped out by. So we're 2 for 2 here with this pair of episodes that I believe aired together. Maybe they were still airing together at this point. Anyway, but I really hate it when there's an episode of people are suffocating or otherwise not able to breathe, and there's a ticking clock for because I was conceiving that they were suffocating and dying inside of that moss. I mean, I'm guessing it must have just been magic because they were fine afterwards and they were not dead, and they didn't seem to remember anything being inside there.
Yeah, one of them says, "I think I died," but whether that's an actual assessment or just she's rather laid back way of saying, "I couldn't see and hear things for a while, so I assume I was dead."
Yeah.
But I too was going, don't they need to breathe and things?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe it's magic, maybe the moss I don't know, secretes oxygen somehow.
I have no idea, but it particularly freaked me out just because there was that one scene where I can't remember if it was Steven or Lars. Somebody, I think it was Lars, was pulling the moss away from Jenny's face, and she was gasping every time he did that. And then, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's trying to breathe in there. Somebody save her.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought, okay, I guess she hasn't been down there that long. She gets, so yeah, okay, she can breathe now, and it's not. And then no, it just covered her back up, and then it was.
It's so scary.
It must have been a fair trip up the hill. Certainly longer than you'd want to hold your breath for.
Yeah, you could survive it. Maybe, assuming that was in real time.
Yeah, well, you'd be unlikely to just step straight back up again. You'd be, well, at the very least, kind of woozy.
Yeah. So I credit magic.
There we go. Magic, or maybe they're just too cool for oxygen.
Yes. And Lars's last words, if they were going to die there, were going to be, "This sucks." Oh, Lars.
Yeah,
Never stop being Lars.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if they were his last words whenever he does shuffle off the mortal coil.
Oh, yeah. So, related to shuffling off this mortal coil, I can make a probing question out of that.
Here we go.
How about, let's say the gems activity did actually cause a teenager to die one day. What do you think the people in Beach City would do about it?
That's a good question. People are definitely adapted to the gem's presence, so they are a fact of life. However, with only a few exceptions, we haven't seen directly how they get along with the actual people. Amethyst obviously has the most direct relationships with actual people in the town. Even if we've only seen them on the surface, she actually does involve herself with individuals. I can imagine there being a split between, they cause someone to die, and yes, but look at all the rest they've done for us. They didn't mean it. They saved us from, some kind of gem black hole lobstersaurus creature in the past, in which case all of us would be dead. So I don't know, but maybe they'd go for an actual trial situation, depending on how the gems took to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure what they could actually do to the gems other than extremely shun them. I mean, even if they lock them up, if they don't want to stay locked up, they're not going to stay locked up.
Mm-hmm.
It's unlikely if the town would even be so harsh that they could kill them. Banish them, maybe. But again, that's really the gems have to accept what they've done. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Yeah. I could see them wanting to run them out of town for being involved or not. I could see if they perceived that the gems should have protected them from something and they failed to protect them, that would be one thing. But if it was perceived that they literally caused this to happen, even if it was Steven, they would probably be like, what did you guys do?
Yeah. Of most earthly punishments, I don't think they could do anything to the gems that the gems themselves wouldn't have to be complicit in to enact.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I think if the gems actually caused someone's death, they'd feel pretty horrible about it and probably would accept any doled out punishment. That does raise a question of, do they need to be in Beach City to do their job, or is that just where they ended up in the ebb and flow of things? I suppose how long has Beach City been there is also a fair question, because if it's been there for a couple 100 years, then in this hypothetical situation, that may produce a different reaction to than if Beach City is only a couple of decades old.
Right.
With most of the township's opinions on the gems we've heard from Lars, and he's had his typical cynical about everything, so it's not really a vox pop.
Yeah.
and Mr. Smiley, but I think his reactions to what they've done would be the same if anyone had done them, because they're mostly just messing up his stuff.
Yeah, and it all seems to be focused on Stephen. He hasn't said anything to the others.
No, at most you could say his anger at Stephen was anger at the group, but you kind of have to read that. Yes.
Yeah, he banned Stephen from all the rides. I mean, he's the one who jumped off the teacups. So, it's funny. Seems to always be him that's messing up Mr. Smiley's stuff. I mean, Garnet punched his machines, but he didn't see that.
Exactly, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, he only saw Stephen destroying a machine.
Maybe he just thinks they're rubbish guardians, that they don't stop their kid screwing up his rides and his equipment and whatever else.
Yeah, we don't really get to hear from him, do we, about what he thinks. He plays right along when they want to wrestle.
Yeah. So, I think it would divide the town. Again, not taking into account things I don't actually know. It would divide the town if they were to cause harm, even if it were inadvertent. Well, moreover, if they were to cause significant harm to a person, because the property damage just seems to be par for the course. Mr. Smiley gets upset, but we saw you saved most of Beach City thing, and, well, they didn't suffer any real fallout from that.
I wonder how the insurance industry is in Beach City.
It's either booming or dead.
Yeah. I mean, we have seen a few people encounter some close calls, right? I mean, Connie almost got her head bashed in by a piece of rock, and all those people on the teacups got flung into the sea, and
Frybo's various victims.
Yeah. Shoving potatoes down people's throats, and just Amethyst being Purple Puma.
Yeah.
Those drill parasites could have smashed somebody, but they didn't.
It does seem, and granted this is possibly partly it's a kids show thing, but a lot of the monsters that get into town just seem to randomly cause destruction, like the parasites and things. Only a few have actually sort of directly gone towards people.
Yeah, really, we mostly just see them targeting the gems.
Yeah, and the gems target them back, so that's fair.
Yeah. Okay, so music, again, we don't have a song. Just some spaced out beats.
Yeah.
Which they actually called that instrumental track Spaced Out Beats.
Well, there you go. That's what it says in the tin.
Yeah, there's another one that I don't recall what it was called, where they played a really beautiful piece of music when those blossoms were floating over the town. I don't remember the name of that instrumental, though. If I ever knew it, I probably did.
Of course you did.
But I don't now, so I don't look like the awesome trivia buff. I mean, all I'd have to do is go look it up on a wiki somewhere, but I think it has some relationship with the hill or something. Maybe it's just called the hill. Anyway. We don't have any food either. They ate some pizza, but I've made fish stew pizza before.
Yeah, the pizza's pretty covered.
Yeah, I mean, unless I am going to make food no matter who eats it, and the cool kids were food for that moss. Who's going to have to make cool kids for Mossy? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go that far into it. Anything that consumes anything, I'll make it. So we can just assume that the fish soup pizza I have made before counts for this episode.
Yeah, that's fair. It is a franchise after all.
I can only show you how to make a pizza so many times. There will be others, but
Well, it fits because the whole reason Stephen goes there is because he knows you can get the same pizza over and over. So we don't need to tell people it's the same because it's supposed to be the same.
Ooh, what if you could put the bits on a pizza?
The fry bit.
Yeah.
Ooh.
The bits. What if you did that at the pizza shop?
I have seen pizzas with full-size chips on them, but not the bits.
Oh, no, I've seen that too. Oh my goodness. Yeah, but not the bits. That's what he would want.
Yeah.
Let's see.
There's some
Factoid stuff. Huh?
There's a pizza and chip shop nearby. Maybe I can try to persuade them. You get the leftovers and you get the dough you have. Now hear me out.
That'd be great. You have to take pictures for us. Okay. The people who did the drawing and storyboarding writing on this one were Lamar Abrams again and someone named Matt Braley. And this is Matt's only episode. So it's another person that worked on it once with Lamar and disappeared.
Oh, check that dude's
I wonder if
basement.
he's like a freelancer or something. I don't know. I kind of looked at like some of the storyboarders' backgrounds, and I think he's mostly just worked on other shows. But this is his only credit for Steven Universe.
Yeah, maybe he's just a jobbing artist.
Yeah, need somebody to fill in here, help us draw some teenager's about to get eaten by carnivorous moss. And then he says, well, I was scarred for life from that. I will never work with you people again. None of that is to be quoted, I should say. None of that is from what Matt Braley says. I'm just putting words in his mouth, and I'm so sorry. Let's see. A couple of those people are folks who haven't talked yet, I guess, in the show. So I can tell you, voice actors. Brian Posane is sour cream.
Him I've heard of course.
Yeah,
I say, of course. No one knows why I would have heard of Brian Posane, but I have.
Yeah, he's a comedian, right?
Yeah, he's been on a few shows I've seen. He's done the odd podcast, and I think, and I'm just going to double check, but I believe he was also on the Sarah Silverman program. Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Cool. I'm not very familiar with his other work. I just kind of knew that he did some funny stuff. I don't know if it was stand-up that I thought he did, but
Oh, now I remember. He also wrote comics.
Oh, okay.
I wrote a bunch of Deadpool comics.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's cool. He's really got his fingers in a bunch of different things. Neat.
I often get him a bit confused with the guy who plays his boyfriend on Sarah Silverman program because they're actually quite similar guys, which is part of the thing. But just means occasionally I just mix them up on superficial details.
I see. The voice actor for Jenny is the same person who does her sister, which is Reagan Gomez Preston. I don't really know what her other stuff is either, but I think I remember that she hosted a podcast once too, but I don't remember what it was. And Buck was voiced by Lamar Abrams. He occasionally does a voice here and there in the show.
I was half expecting this would be one of those, and this is played by the child of the celebrity voice actor who plays the parent, but
Yeah.
I didn't even know if Joel Hodgson has children, so who knows.
Oh, that would be funny. I've heard Lamar talk about his work on Steven Universe on a couple of the podcasts and some other interviews. And he said this in reference to not this episode, but some other episode. But he says that sometimes he'll board something and he'll write it, and then later when he's called to do the voice for the character that he's writing, he's like, "Oh yeah, man, I have to do that now." Like he'll have forgotten that he has to do this other part of it, as he's usually on the other side of it. I think that's kind of funny.
It's like when writers set up mysteries and they think, some other writer's going to have to take care of that, and then they realize it's them and they're like,
I have to solve this now. Oh my god. He I think what did he say about Buck? He's just cool. He's always so chill. He's got the glasses, he's got the chill attitude.
Well, he probably has to amp it up because his dad being the mayor would be a pretty square thing, so.
Very good point. True. Oh my goodness.
I mean, we all have those, the cool kids have those, oh no, what if my parents embarrass me things, but he's got to watch for his parents, his dad at least, doing it on TV every night on the news or something and talking in the town square. So he can't hide from it. He can't just, bustle people out as quickly as he wants because he can't limit the people's access to his father.
That's right. Yeah. And they're always going to probably think of him like, oh, it's Buck, the mayor's son. Yeah.
In fact, some of my friends once went to school with a prime minister's son, and in fact, all they used to say about him was that he was the prime minister's son.
Oh, that gets to be a drag. So he's probably trying to define himself separately from his dad, who again is trying to get re-elected, and we never see if he's running against anyone in particular. Like he's got his election mobile, now he's doing speeches, but already the mayor is someone challenging him or what's going on, right?
Or is he just it's just formality just has to get enough people to vote for him even if no one actually is running against him.
Yeah, and he's like, this town is so small. I have to get people to turn out for the vote.
Well, there's another Springfield thing. Mayor Quimby's been in charge for
I wrote down the
years.
quote again. Oh, yeah. And he never has a challenger.
Yeah, he's been re-elected every time.
Oh, with no contest?
I mean, he talks about opponents, but he's still back up there every time. So who knows?
It's probably something like that. Rebecca Sugar is a fan of The Simpsons. I have the quote here for what the episode is described. It's just Steven and Lars get to hang out with the cool kids in town. Buck, Jenny, and Sour Cream, but their teenage shenanigans get them into deadly magical trouble. That's at least vaguer than the last one.
Oh yeah, and I just called up the one on Stan, and it's about that, but just doesn't mention the kids' names and doesn't mention that the trouble is deadly as well as magical.
the only thing left on my agenda is to show you some merch.
Yeah, let's see the loot.
So there's no Cool Kids loot.
Oh.
Why?
I'm still surprised there isn't one of those mini figure absolutely everyone who's ever been on it range of Steven Universe like there are for some other shows.
What kind of figure?
I've seen some shows, they've got like figures that are only like a few centimeters tall, and you usually get them blind packed or just you scoop them out of a bucket on the counter. But they're usually just so plentiful that almost anyone who's ever been on the program is represented somehow. And I would have thought Steven Universe was the sort of show that was right for that.
Yeah, I would have too, but there's so many characters that have never gotten a figure. So I just did something pretty generic again. I'm going to show you my cool wallet.
Oh, here's the cool wallet.
On it. I will tell you that there's a reason that I'm showing you this now, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. Mainly, it's there's some merchandise I have that I want to show you now before something happens in the show. So,
fair enough.
So that's why I am showing you this now. And the inside of it's pretty cool, but I found this to be really, I don't know, it's kind of unwieldy, so I don't really use it.
Yeah, it looks, I'll just describe it for people at home. It's a clasp type wallet. It's probably a bit bigger than a mobile phone case. It's hard shell and got pictures of our four main characters on the side. There we go. Ivy's just held her mobile up to it to compare. And yeah, inside it's got the various compartments and slips you need, which looks like in terms of holding things, it'd be quite handy as a wallet. But I can see Ivy's case that it would be a large case to try to keep in one's pocket or stuck in one waistband or what have you. So.
Yeah, I did use it for a little while, and then I ended up just finding it to be taking up too much space, I guess, in my backpack. Obviously not my cheeseburger, but weirdly enough, I was not on a quest to collect every Steven Universe wallet, but I ended up with like 5 of them, and I just kept getting another one and trying it out and not liking something about it, so I'd get another one. And I finally have one that I use daily, but there was even one that the credit card holders were too narrow to hold a credit card.
Oh, that's an oversight.
Yeah, I'm like, on the one hand, I could complain that are they just making these wallets for people who don't have credit cards? And then I'm like, it's a kids show. They probably are putting like who knows what in there. So I guess I had another one that the cards wouldn't go in and out easily. They kept sticking in there. So I literally ended up with 5 different wallets, but I only showed you one. Most of the other ones aren't spoilery either though. So it's just, we've got more than 100 episodes to go. So I kind of have to conserve my merchandise. Even I have to conserve my merchandise. But,
need like a spreadsheet of episodes and items.
Yeah, I have not created one of those as such, but I may end up having to do that so that I don't keep showing you stuff I've already shown you. And then I'll be like, you'll be like, Ivy, you already showed me that junk. You need to get organized, get Pearl to organize your stuff.
Oh, yeah.
We're like Amethyst right now. No, my house is very organized, actually.
It's pretty organized at the moment.
Good. I do have a list of all my stuff for what I have collected so that I don't accidentally buy the same thing again. It also comes in handy for some of my more savvy family members who wish to give me a Steven Universe gift for holiday, which is coming up very soon. And they'll browse that. That's the only way to make sure they're not getting me something that I already have.
I have a similar thing with books because I have so many books.
Oh, yeah. I've got a public list of all my books, but I don't think anyone uses it except me because I go to secondhand shops and then I'm like, do I have this or not? So, is what it is. Well, I'm done ranting about the cool kids and Lars today.
Yeah, I think I am too. I think we've all learned our lesson of not swimming in mysterious slimy moss.
Yeah. Yep. It doesn't look like a very nice place to swim. I wouldn't have done that anyway.
Yeah, but are you a cool teenage rebel though?
I am not.
Are you above the law?
I might be. But I am not a cool kid. I think I'm pretty cool, but I'm not a kid.
You haven't got the impetuousness of teenagerhood. It's not going to affect me this second, so I don't have to plan ahead for it.
Yeah. So don't go swimming with moss, kids. And wear your seatbelt.
Yes, there we go. So we'll leave you off with this safety message until we return of episode 15.
Yes. See y'all next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You've been listening to Ivy and Daria on Not So Giant Women.
You can find episodes of the show in video form by looking up Not So Giant Women on YouTube.
Or in audio form at anchor.fm/NotSoGiantWomen or your podcatcher of choice. You can also find us on Facebook.
Audio production by Daria.
Video production and music by Ivy.
Daria can also be heard on Podsploitation, the Ozploitation podcast.
And Ivy at her Steven Universe fan blog at love-takes-work.tumblr.com.
Steven Universe was created by Rebecca Sugar and remains property of Cartoon Network.
No infringement is intended.